Good evening, good morning, good day, good night. Welcome to Bongversations episode number 44 on September the 21st, 2025. Dave
Yep.
J, I can hear you chomping at the bit to get
Right.
out the facts of 44.
Yeah.
The facts of
So,
44.
yeah, 44. 44. So, at first, you'll notice, just like that, we wound up at the fourth master number or master building number. You have the 11, the 22, the 33, and now, of course, the 44. So, and then, of course, if you reduce those, that's the 2, 4, 6, 8. Who do you appreciate type of chant that you have at games. Have you ever heard
Yeah,
that? Two,
I have.
4, 6, 8. So
Who do
then,
we appreciate?
yeah,
Dave J! Yeah,
yeah. So then that's the 11, the 22, the 33, and the 44. Do you see how it works into that chant? And
I
so
do.
then, yeah. So then what just happened then is now at this point there's going to be some interesting kind of mystery solved as one that the mystery of why there's two genealogies for Jesus in the New Testament, one in Matt and one in Luke. All right, so
Yep.
so that's easily solved, and it's all solved by simply looking at the story being presented and then what is being offered to the consumer even today. Because Rick, like I was going to tell you earlier, but this is this when you speak to the public or speak to anyone outside of your body, you're that is speaking in the public square. You're expressing, and especially if you're dealing with this type of subject, you're expressing this is the truth of this matter, meaning that if you take what I say to you and you test it, you will find it to be true, and then it will be itself, regardless of me, you, or anybody else. It just is. So then you see the difference between that and just kind of jibber jabber or gibberish.
Yeah.
So and that's also why it's stated plainly that those that claim to know, or those that teach as if they do know, will be judged more harshly, because they give out this idea that, oh, I'm telling you this is the way it is, or that's the way it is, and yet they don't even know what they're talking about. And it's plain to see, especially when you get to the level we're at. We're now talking about the 44, which is really, if you look at it in the 2D space, it's two squares. But now, if you think about it, and this is done a lot in movies, it goes back to the 2001 movie, and really the 2010, um, the year we made contact. Remember that the kind of the follow up
Yep. It
to
had Roy Scheider.
Schreider, yeah. And he
Yep.
had the pool with the dolphin in it, like the goofy kind of. In the future, you're gonna have a living room with a pool and a dolphin in it. At the very end. And so, yeah, so they go off. But one of the scenes when they're connecting the pods was this long, elongating kind of tunnel that elongated, if you remember that scene from one to the next. And that's very similar to this 44, because as the 4, the 4, the 4, the 4, the 8, the 12, which is the 3, the idea of the 16, which is the 7 or the mind. You see how each pane, and sometimes this is done in music video as well, how the panes of glass are shown to expand into the third dimension, thus
Yep.
creating space between the planes. It's all, you know what? It's also done on the beginning of Twilight Zone with the broken window pane. That's a
It
very
does. Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
it's
Yep,
the
exactly.
same exact idea. Same exact idea. So then, if you're dealing with the idea of master builder number 44, that then has a character, and it has a known character in this place, this realm, and it's easily seen. So if you look at, let's say, the Lesser Key of Solomon. I know that I do this so that we kind of have, if somebody's looking at kind of a balance, they see that they can go to these different places, a script, and find out that these characters all represent the same general idea. So the so-called 44th demon in the Lesser Key of Solomon is named Shax, so Shax. So you can say like Shax or Sax. That idea of the music.
Interesting that you'd have a
Yeah,
famous basketballer called Shaq.
yeah, yeah,
Shaq's.
yeah. And
Coincidence? I don't think so.
yeah, and he's also and known for deception, known for sales. And Shaq is a big time. He's literally on every package. You go to Office Depot, he's selling
Yep.
printers. You know, he's
He's
there.
everywhere.
He's actually in the liquor section on these fruit punches that are
Yeah,
yeah,
he's a
and
marketing
his mug sitting right on
genius.
there. So yeah. So one of the abilities of this Shax is deception, which doesn't he also sometimes play the genie, kind of
He
like a
does,
genie
yeah.
character. Yeah, yeah,
He's in a whole lot of adverts here for gambling.
yeah. Because part of the abilities of Shax is also reveals hidden treasures and missing items.
There
That's
you
the
go.
idea. Yeah, yeah. Quite interesting. And oh, he can also make people deaf, dumb, and blind. Now these are characteristics of one antichrist. Just so you know, it's not individual different powers. These are like if you're dealing with the mind of the antichrist, these are the different characteristics or manifestations this character can make within a person you know. So if they're infested with this particular kind of shard or beam, like the beam in their eye, it can cause them to go blind, deaf, and dumb. It can cause them to then fall for or to seek these hidden treasures and missing items just by smashing a little button. And where they're and guess what? And the other ability is steals monies and possessions, even from kings.
There you go.
Yeah, you notice, and that's all within the grimoire. That's Lesser Key of Solomon. So you can see it's not so much the kind of like a costume character. It's more of a mindset, almost like a root of a mindset, meaning that's a little finger of a thought that can be manifest in someone's mind if that demon is activated. They can fall for that. Yeah. So then also, just so you know, this same so-called 44, it would be the same that is brought into any movie that's going to be showing you the Tarot or mirror skyring, like this skying, if that's what you want to, or crying, that idea, or runes, any type of, they're all representations of the 44 idea, all of them, because they're representing opening up a door, meaning that, or reflecting an open door from the 2D into the 3D. And oh, check this out, and this is quite interesting, I think you might find, is that with this so-called demon or kind of manifestation of a characteristic, the elemental ties are air and water. You'll remember that when we first started, we talked about the so-called idea of the flood, and that then the only aspects left would be the water, the ark, and then the air. And then, of course, the giants, or the idea of the spirits, the fallen spirits, or the ideas, what are left as demons that torment man's mind, are left in the air, because they are then bound until the day of judgment. That's how they survive, because air and water is the first judgment, and then the second judgment is earth and fire, which is the
Yep.
remaining two of the four. That's again a four manifestation, which of course, just so you know, it's the idea of eight. And I was going to tell you about this. Now the Annunciation. Now the Annunciation is the idea of like an announcement. So if you go back to Mark Twain, of all people, the Mark Twain character, which is just another kind of Ashkenazi Jew character given to you, kind of the German Jew Ashkenazi, who offers you novel or novelettes, and this one in particular was called The Mysterious Stranger, and it had a lot of uh, uh, it was made several different times, two or three different times, and the story is that the character goes by the number 44, and the character who goes by the number 44 is of course Satan, and of course hidden in the earlier version as like the nephew of Satan or something else, but it's really just the Chronicles of Young Satan or Satan. And also, uh, the Satan character in the Chronicle of Young Satan, which was one times what it was called. Uh, uh, he grew up, or he was in an area called Elsendorf, which is the idea of German for Assville, ASSville, like Assville, like so. And
Asheville,
then
right?
yeah,
San
Assville.
Francisco was
Oh yeah,
Asheville.
or yeah, or Donkey Town. So it's already telling you what it's going to make you out as. You know, it's already
Yep.
telling you it's going to make you out as a donkey or an ass. And then I thought to myself, I said, well, then if you think about Scooby Doo, what are they telling you? They're telling you Scooby is a dog and Doo is shit. So dog shit is what they were calling
Scooby
that.
Doo, yeah.
That's the entire cartoon was that, just so the guy's making a joke the whole time, you know, and just like you don't notice because it's hidden right in the words, you know. So so this character, so the same Satan character is what's split, or is what's presented kind of as a dream self or a split self, meaning that it's kind of, is it there in person, or is it just something in the mind? And the same author, Mark Twain, supposedly writes, what was the name of that thing he wrote? Letters from the Earth. Now, have you ever read his Letters from the Earth, which was
No, I
public?
haven't. I'm really only au fait with his Tom Sawyer and Huck
Okay.
Finn stuff, yeah. But I
Ah,
know he was a very well-known travel writer and very well, he used to do a lot of travel writing.
okay.
Um,
Well,
mm,
yeah, you'll go jumping back to that last book. Then you'll notice, since you know the character in schools. I want to say Schoolhouse Hill, which is another. It's like the same version of the story rewritten with the 44 character. He deals with, or he runs into, Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer. It's Huck.
wow,
So it's Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer talking with, or dealing with Satan directly. Just so you know how close all of these characters are to the so-called occult, or to witchcraft, or
fantastic. I'm
yeah,
going to have to start reading these
yeah.
two tomes.
Well, the letters from the Earth is actually what it's dealing with. Is it deals with the so-called archangel Satan, who's corresponding with Gabriel and Michael about the goings on of mankind and blah blah blah. But what it does, and this happens in the same with in the whole lot, is that they will take Old Testament and kind of try to conflate that with Christ.
Yep.
So they'll say,
Oh, you just disappeared.
wait, Satan character, and say, oh, why is
Could
a
you just
loving
repeat
God?
that, Dave? You just repeat that bit, the last 10 seconds, because you disappeared.
Oh, did I? Oh, okay. Let's make sure I'm back.
A
Can you
puff of
hear me
smoke.
fine? Oh, okay.
Yep, you're
I
back.
was gonna, yeah, I was gonna say. So this mysterious stranger, this 44, is the idea of the Yahweh Satan character, and so he's talking with the angels Gabriel and Michael, and about this, that, and the other thing about mankind. And yet we were talking earlier about how almost all so-called antichrist characters will will use the Old Testament, which is the testament of Satan and his children, and conflate it and use it as some sort of treatise against Christ. That, because that's it. Without doing that, there is no case. They have no case. So that, and you might know Gabriel from one in Daniel. Can you still hear me? Just to make sure.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
yeah. So you'll remember Gabriel shows up in Daniel 8 and 9, and also in the New Testament, which this is where it becomes relevant. Shows up with Mary and to Zechariah for the Annunciation of both Jesus and John, if you remember that then storyline. So the Annunciation hoax just happened a little while ago with the so-called Catholic school, and they had the Annunciation school hoax. And now, so I put this. I was saying, well, the the John's Annunciation, the Zechariah side of this story, is celebrated. Guess when? September 23rd. That's just 2 days from now.
Mm.
So I was thinking, let me pop that in the old computer, and it's either depending on if you include the date, the end date of the calculation is 28 days. But if you don't, is you guessed it, 27 or 27 days. I thought so. Then I'm looking to the 23rd for a continuation of the current story, which is being told not only through the Charlie Kirk, which is 311,
Yep.
but through the Annunciation school hoax shooting and all the other the Trump ear fake shot to the ear, all of that stuff. It's all pointing to the announcement or the coming of a one world leader or a so-called antichrist. That's what all of this stuff's pointing towards. All
Interesting.
the so yeah,
Interesting.
all of it.
Mm.
Yeah, all of it. Now Michael, the other angel, which is the Satan character is dealing with in the Mark Twain letters from the earth, you also run into him in Daniel, but also in Jude. He shows up, and where it's an interesting in Jude 1:9, which is New Testament, is that he is he is telling Satan he's not going to bicker with Satan over the body of Moses. He says he's just reminding the people of the story that he didn't bicker. He said just let the Lord rebuke you, which in this case was the Lord Jesus Christ. Let him rebuke you. Because now, why is it important it's the Moses character? Well, this gets back to those two genealogies I told you about. Now then, if you look at why Moses matters, is because if you look at the genealogies of Christ, Moses has nothing to do with it. He's nowhere in there, which some might find interesting in that this guy who gets all the laws and all the shits supposedly isn't even in the line with Christ on either side. So then that means there's something else going on there. That's a mystery to be solved. So then if you look, and we've already talked about some of this stuff. Now I'll just give you a brief kind of overview and kind of tell you where it's relevant. Is now if you look at Matthew 1, 1 through 17, that's of course added up 7, 8, 9, 10. That's a full input output. It's going to be Abraham to Jesus. Now that's important to keep in mind. Now if you go to the next one, it's in Luke 3, 23 through 38. If you add up those numbers, 11, 5, and 3, that's 19. Remember the Metonic cycle, 19.
Mm.
All right, which is also 9 plus 1, or 10. It's also an input-output, but do you see how it comes about a different way as far as calculation-wise?
Yep.
One's a complete 10. One you have to reduce it. You come to a value, then have to reduce it. Here's what's interesting: is that genealogy starts with a character known as God, God. That's Yahweh, and then it works all the way down to where where Jesus is going to be resurrected or brought into the line with Joseph, whose Mary's father is none other than Heli. Remember Heli from
Yeah,
from
yeah, from
Severance?
Severance, yeah.
Yeah. So so then now the choice was in Severance he ran back with Heli. But the fact was that it should have went the other way out the door. Do you see?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That was the
So
inverse.
yeah. So you see. So they were just telling that was really just a scene, whether they knew it or not. That was displaying what we just talked about with those two genealogies. And so what's happening is that that man is being mm, corrected or saved from blood-wise by that interaction, and then that's the so-called mystery of the two lines, because it lets you know why that actually happens, and it makes Jude 19. Remember we said 19 1 9. Keep that in mind because the Luke 3:23 through 38 equals 19. That's the same line that has to be brought together. That's also why Moses is said to be seen at the Transfiguration. The reason that's important is because it then brings all mankind together, meaning that here's the good news, that all so-called mankind, all colors and creeds, are God's children. Here's how you fail at that mission, is that if you false witness death, you don't participate in the kingdom. That's it. That's the only takeaway from all of this. Just so you know, after all is
Yep.
said and done, after all the books have been stacked and all this other stuff, the takeaway is that you cannot offer into this world something you have no power to create. You can't do it. So it's quite important that people then realize that.
There's no bigger proponent of that than you.
Well, yeah, well, because it's quite simple. Because let's talk about 8:44. We're talking about 8, and we're talking about 44. If you go to John 8:44, for example, so let's go to verse 44. It's talking about those people who are of the world, who constantly can't figure it out, who constantly get lied to day after day after day, and yet get up in the morning still looking at a system as if it's not going to lie to them. And I know what you're thinking, Rick. You're like, no, they say out of their mouth that they know they're being lied to. But you know what, Rick? They act as if they're not being lied to. They act as if there's nothing wrong. That's how they act. And they
Yep.
act as if every time a story is presented by this system, that they somehow have to spend weeks, months, if not years, deconstructing point known that
Oh, well, you
nobody
spoke. You
died,
actually,
nobody got hurt.
you spoke to
Yeah.
one of the greatest proponents. He spent 60. This will be the 60 uh, fourth year that he's been
You
on.
talking Fetzer?
Fetzer, James Fetzer. 64 years of research into or concern of the Kennedy operation, or call it an
Right.
operation, and
Oh
spent
yeah.
that long. And there's not just him. There's plenty of others. You know, this sparked that whole uh, research conspiracy theorist type meme from
And this also goes to the man in the mirror for everyone listening. It's like, how long are you gonna sit there and pretend you haven't figured this out? How long are you going to sit there and pretend? Well, because I know, no, I get it. Because once you actually say out of your mouth, you figure it out. Then you actually have to witness it to everyone you come into in real life, and then that's where the problem starts. That's where people stop talking to you, X, Y, and Z. Well, that's just the way it is, and that's just what's going to happen. So, you either S or get off the pot. It's time to do it or screw it, because yeah, because with John 8:44, let's talk about 8:44. Here's what he says: "You are of your father the devil, and your will is to do your father's desires." He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks out of his own character, for he is a liar and the father of lies. That's who these people follow.
yeah.
And so when people say, "Oh, you're being a meanie," or whatever, whatever, what did I just say to you? Those aren't my words.
Yes,
It's
right.
like
Yeah,
you've been given.
you're
Yeah,
paraphrasing, or you actually actually
I'm
reading
reading the exact
the exact
words.
words, exact words of
Yeah,
the.
so
Yeah.
exact words. So that's the difference, because people have been given this cock and bull story that they've chosen to believe in, of this of the different options in this place, this hell. There's only one option. There's that you live by the free will and grace of your Lord Jesus Christ, your Creator. Done. Or there's a choice, and that's the wonderful thing. There's the choice that you don't, and that you follow the lie, the system, and at the end of your miserable life, you'll dissipate. Not because God wanted you to, but because you chose to. It was always your choice. And it's always your choice at each day and each moment to stop lying to yourself and then to others. That's always a choice you can make.
Yep.
You know, yeah. He goes into in the same letters from the earth. He goes into like just like religious critique and folly and there's kind of objections to certain you know aspects of the so-called Catholic Church, which is also, of course, just you know the just another version of the Jewish synagogue. So it's really just fighting against themselves. So they're kind of giving you these false battles, and but they're giving it under names that people would say, oh, that's a very famous author. I'm going to read that, and then that's how they creep these ideas in, you know,
Yeah,
through
that
these
sounds
different.
very, it's like the same time around the same era. You had the screw tape letters, and you also had C.S. Lewis's books that
Yeah,
he wrote of very similar scenarios. There's what's the other one? The Dante's Inferno and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah. Screw tapes letter. I'd say that's almost like the exact same thing. It's very close to
Yeah,
almost very close to the same thing.
yeah.
And there used to be a comic book series that I used to read. It was called Weird War, and it was a
Oh yeah, they
DC
were
comic.
fantastic. Yeah, DC comics, yeah, from the mid '70s.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, they were.
Weird War.
I want. Yeah, Weird War was the name of them. And the one episode or comic book, it was a 25 center. Now I've got a couple of them, but they're in the Philippines. But this one,
Hang on to them.
Weird War was.
Mm.
Yeah, he was. There's a parachutist who's dropping down, and there's a bunch of like kind of other parachutists hanging on the left and the right, but they're kind of like they're just corpses, so they've been there a long time. And he's landing on a sign that says, "We have been waiting for you."
Yeah,
And so and what was interesting about that was that is the he's landing on what's called an oblong cube, or really just a laying down monolith, which we've talked about before, which is the idea of an idea. So within that book, they have an emperor of Weehawken, which is the third story I want to say, and and all of these stories are narrated by a character named Death, by the
yeah.
way.
See, he's got a skull.
And,
It's a skull,
yeah,
basically. Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. Yep.
I would think that maybe Iron Maiden guys read some of these, huh?
Yeah, possibly. These they were
Yeah,
fantastic comics. I mean, that
yeah,
era of and just remember
yeah,
DC comics. That's your number seven there. Um,
yeah, yeah.
they
It
had
was,
fantastic out there stories though, and there's a lot of stuff nowadays. You read them as a knowledgeable person, you'll see that they weren't just written for kids. There was some powerful stuff in there.
well, this stuff goes. The Emperor of Weehawken goes. Speaking of seven, the person goes back 700 years
Uh,
after a so-called nuclear war to warn people in 1974, which was I'd say 2 years earlier than when the comic came out. So it would have been had you been a kid in 1976 reading it, you would have said, "Oh, okay, the guy's already here."
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
say, "Oh, he's already walking around or whatnot, telling people, warning people." And so, but the amount of guess what, 700. You guessed it. You didn't. You know, and just like you were saying, you know, seven, the DC idea. You
yeah.
know,
But
and then
some
even with
really good that era of comics. And I've actually talked about this. I was a while ago. I remember being on a holiday, Christmas holiday, '74, and reading these a new series of the group, like the Superman. It was DC Comics, but that when they formed the alliance or whatever, and all
uh
of a
huh.
sudden Superman starts being crying. He lost all his. He becomes more human and more nefarious stuff started coming into what meant to be your superhero that flew around. Nothing went wrong for him. It all
Well,
started around '74.
yeah, I mean because dude, Reeve, he was kind of a candy ass when he was playing the Clark Kent.
Yeah.
I mean, he was quite low, lighting the loafers, little sugar in the tank they call it. You know. So I always thought he was a little fruity,
Oh yeah, there's
even with that stupid
not as
little
bad. He was a thespian as well. Like they picked a guy. He
yeah.
looked like him, didn't act like him. Didn't
Yeah,
sound
even
like
with
him.
that stupid little curl. You
Yeah,
have when he was
yeah,
Superman. He had that little
yeah,
faggoty curl.
yeah. Not.
Yeah. So,
No, sorry.
oh no, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm just saying that whole era they demolished your superheroes around the '74 era, and you started seeing this is Vietnam was going on. There was a lot of protests and stuff, and Weird War came out where it was basically nasty stories about war. There was
The
there was always
Vietnam War.
ghosts and yeah, or
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know what I
There's
mean.
oh yeah, yeah. There's always ghosts. That's well, that weird war was nothing but kind of those ghost stories. And in fact, when we get to episode 50, I have that. That's one of the comic. That's one of the episodes or one of the books I have that covers the Spear of Destiny, which is an awesome kind of
Fantastic, hey,
uh,
fantastic.
way to
Well,
go down.
I do. It's my favourite subject is comic books.
Yeah,
One
yeah.
of them, sorry,
So
one of my favourites.
yeah, so if you're also if you're thinking about the idea of so you have four, so 2, 4, 6, 8, and also with the 11, the 22, the 33, 44. So then if you're talking about the so-called the builders of this place, because these are the stories they're using. Now they're going to be using the Kabbalah or
Yep.
chaos magic, and so then you're dealing with the fourth kind of uh, power. And so then that would be identified as mercy, the idea of El, the El God or the mighty one, that kind of idea.
Elf.
And
Yep.
it also deals El. It also deals with ego, or what's called memory. So I remember. So I remember now.
Yep.
When people say I remember, do they remember what they saw, or do they remember what they were said to have seen? Meaning that if you ever watch news, they'll give you a clip that has really nothing to do with what the words are being said. So are
Yep.
they remembering what they have been told to remember, or are they remembering what they actually witnessed? That's that point. That's that 44 point. Because guess what? On the so-called 32 yeah, the so-called 32 paths, that's path, guess what, 19. That's where
Mhm.
that intersects. 16 and 19 intersect at the mercy, along with 20 and 21. So you're dealing with the idea of directly across. So mercy and severity, those are your two choices, the red and the blue, right? In any really given situation, you're either going to go this way or that way. You're going to do something or do nothing. So
Yep.
it's really that point of choice. So then that's then that intersection of 19, which we talked about before, was the metonic cycle, which just so happens today to go back to where I interlaced it with the Jude 1:9, going through dealing with the idea of the false line or the false bloodline, which is spoken about through the heli, the different through that line, through that Mary line, through the genealogy spoken about in Luke 3. That's important for those that are dealing with numbers.
Luke
So
3.
it's like if you ever, yeah. So if you ever, but sometimes I don't want to get into each and every one of these, because if somebody's interested, they'll go in and they'll look into it. But if you're interested, the clue you're looking for is in there's two genealogies, and the reason is because there has to be a reconciliation made. That's the reason for it, and you'll see very easily where it's made now that I've told you about it, with all those clues. And also now you'll know why and who the Moses character is, and why you don't even need to worry about it.
This is big.
Isn't that interesting?
This is big.
Yeah.
Big story though for the average Sunday
Yeah.
school Catholic Christian, etc.
Well, that's doesn't none of that means anything to me, man.
Uh,
When I hear people say any of that, Catholic, Christian, none of that means anything to me. I don't even know what most of those people even know. Most of them couldn't. They don't even know literally what they're talking about. So what does that
Deliberately
make you
so,
really?
though. Deliberately so.
Yeah,
This has been
but what
what.
does that make you? It's like
Yeah.
it's like are you something just because a third party says you are something? No, you're something because you demonstrate a proficiency for it, and it's demonstrated, and then they say, oh, but I can now see that you are an X, Y, or a Z. But just people calling themselves something just because they think that by just professing something out of that's not how that works.
Yeah.
That's not how that works.
I think
So it's
people are
like
blind to
yeah,
the truth in a lot of ways.
yeah. Oh yeah. Well, yeah, we talked about that in that verse, is that he, because there's no truth in him, therefore there's no truth in his children. They just it also goes back to this Abraham idea, because remember, when I told you there's always these different clues, and so when Christ is talking to these so-called Jews and they're saying that we are the children of Abraham and we have never been slaves to anyone, to the average consumer of the word, they might be sitting there, then what the heck is this whole all that Moses shit all about?
Yeah.
If you've never been, what are you talking about? And most people just quickly, okay, next week, don't worry about that. We'll just talk. So what do you mean? That's something I want to stop and figure out. What are you talking about? You were never a slave. Then if you were never slaves, then who the hell is this Moses asshole? And why should I even worry about him? And turns out that you don't have to. It's not for you. It has nothing to do with you. You know,
Yep.
your witness is happening at this current moment in time. And then when you read that so-called Moses character, it's actually, not only is it a story of failure, but it's a story of not only absolute failure, absolute lack of leadership, but it's also a story of redemption in the end. That's the difference.
Yeah.
That's the difference in the end, because most people have completely confused. Kind of, you're given parable because if you're just given an equation, well, you're like, what does that mean? Well, let me put some English words around it, or whatever language you speak in. Let me put some words around this equation so that you can now understand what the equation means. Because if I just offer you the equation just as plain code, 7, 6, 7, 7, you'll be like, oh, okay, what? But if I put words around it, then
Yeah.
you'll say, oh, now I see what the tone and the intent is. Just know that you can always see the base code, or kind of the beat of the system. If you notice, the master building numbers, the 11, 22, 33, 44, are the same ones you're going to see in all these stories being built. Every one of them. And this is across not only all so-called scripture, also called grimoires, any occult book you can run yourself into, and all actual literature as well, because all of this code has to happen because it's just the nature of word creation. You're literally looking at the nature of word creation, whether that power is used for good or evil, for lie or truth. It's the same base code. So once you recognize the base code, you simply, and I've told you before, you simply need to discern the intent of the caster, or the one offering you the spell. Once you know their intent, you can then categorize them and their information appropriately.
Yeah.
And you'll find out, Rick, that most inputs you're getting, you can immediately delete.
Yeah, it's
Immediately.
amazing the 7 thing, no matter, I've heard, a few people, they've kind of
Mm-hmm.
scoffed a bit at the beginning, and all of a sudden they go, oh, there it is. There'll be a
Yeah.
story. There'll
Well, you
be
can't
some
miss it,
story of
man.
some the classic one that I go on about, that was 2 years, 3 years ago, a school bus crashed. Children had their
Mm-hmm.
arms ripped off. There were 7 children hurt. Blah blah
Yep.
blah. And did we ever see anything the next day, or it was just on the news for one day? Then the cycle just went away. No one asked questions about how are those children going in that accident
I
that had their
remember when
arms
you
ripped.
put that up. I
Hmm.
remember you put
Oh
that up. I
well,
remember
I
that day
was
you put
just
that up.
baffled because
And
I'd gone to a
yeah.
job. I walked in onto
Uh-huh.
a job, opened the door up, and this woman was in tears. And I said, "What's the matter?" She said, "Oh, I've just listened to the news. 7 children, arms ripped off in a
Oh,
bus accident." And
I
that's when
remember
I
you were doing that, and I was like, 7, 7, 7.
Yeah, and you
Don't let
pointed
him. I was
out
like,
what you pointed out is that an arm forms
yep,
the 7.
yep.
Yeah, and I thought, oh, he's got it
Little
again.
dangling seven
Then,
sevens hanging out of there.
yeah, yeah, So
It's so
yeah,
ridiculous, Rick, man. Once you just, it's just so ridiculous. It's terrible, man. It's ridiculous. So then, so yeah, so then that's well, you also have, just so you know, the 44 as you rotate it. Yeah, let's say if you draw two squares, just in the 2D on a piece of paper on top of each other,
yeah,
two squares. Okay, that's your 44 in reality, right? So if you start to, but you've also made a monolith in a way. You can also see that it looks like an 8, just by, if it was a digital clock, it'd look like an 8. And now if you start to spin that, then you start to get in as you spin it, you start to get into the into the idea of somatics,
yeah,
or building, or buildings, what's called sacred geometry,
yeah,
that type of idea.
yeah,
If you've ever, so then, so the 44 is a double square, or an octagon, right? So
yeah,
then that's within sacred so-called geometry. That's the it's called a symbol of structure, and or cosmic design. Now, I've shown you that before, is because that's what builds that tent. And then within the tent, the plasma, or the idea, forms and is nurtured, and then is given power to, and it grows. And then that idea grows, sometimes to the point of uh, uh, what would you call it, possession, to where have you had people who've picked up a hobby, and then after a while, that's all that, like, literally every waking moment you see them, that's what they're talking about? This happens with golfers sometimes,
yeah. So
and some other
well,
people.
golfers,
Yeah,
bowling.
yeah.
There's a whole number of
Well, and then literally everything from that moment is bowling related.
yeah,
Everything. Say every spare moment they're reading a bowling magazine. That's a possession
yeah.
as well. In
Golf,
the same.
golf would be the
Yeah.
worst. I have to say that. I reckon the
Yeah.
worst of the lot. That they become so obsessed about. I haven't even looked into the whole uh, game of golf, but there's 18 holes. There's, you got your nine there.
Correct.
There's a there, but that. But this is a global phenomenon of obsession that starts at whenever they pick it up to they're
Oh
dead.
yeah.
To their dead.
Yeah. I was a
Um,
single digit handicapper at one point, golfer. So
oh well, there you go. And my
oh yeah.
father's a very good golfer too, but
Yeah. It's
I never got that skill.
yeah. I gave it up. I gave it up. It's just it's one of those things. It's like, kind of, I was thinking, because I used to play basketball and other things. So I was thinking, though, that if I go to a basketball court, it's the same no matter where I go. But every time I went to a golf course, it was different.
Yeah,
Every hole was different, so it was a different environment. And then plus I got to walk a lot. So then the
they do
oh
call it a handicap, which is an
yeah,
interesting
handicap, yeah.
phrase.
Well,
Phrase.
yeah, it's a handicap. So yeah, it's to kind of keep it even,
Yeah,
kind of keep you know the tournaments close,
yeah.
so there's not a lot of fights at the barbecue afterwards, at the old 19th hole.
The
The
19th
old,
hole.
yeah,
That's
at
yeah.
the 19th hole. We were just talking about the 19th.
And they sit
Guess
there and
what
they guess
happens
they
at the
talk about
19th
golf.
hole? That's where they start to infuse, if they haven't already, the spirit into the game at the 19th
Interesting.
hole, because that's the
Interesting, yeah.
par. That's
Over a
where,
few
yeah,
frothy beers or whatever
yeah.
they choose to
Yeah, yeah.
imbibe.
So,
Yeah.
so you see, it's that same idea, how it follows
And that's
through.
the metonic, your metonic cycle
Metonic
ending.
cycle. And I also split it up, like when I say tonic. So it's the idea of the you, or the me, the body, tonic. A tonic
Yeah,
is the idea of what one takes as a medicinal use, really, or a medicine. What are they taking as their tonic? What story are they consuming that's making them feel good?
yeah.
What type of perversion? What type of, because if I look at some of these people's stories, it's like, what are you reading over there? X number of this did that on this. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you reading? What are you getting out of reading this? And guess what, sport? What if I told you that this, in fact, didn't happen? That nobody died, nobody got hurt. No, wait, whoa, stop, sport. Nobody died, nobody got hurt. and nothing you say, do, think, and or feel changes that. All right, have a great day. Bye bye. It's like I just saved you all that time. You don't need to worry about it because you're not going to do nothing anyway. It's all that saved time. You can go actually out and do something for yourself now. Enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
So then the in Egyptian so-called mystic, and all this stuff is Rosicrucian. It's all a lot newer than what's being
Oh yeah.
said, but what they reflect in this same kind of idea, the 44, which is always shown as being kind of in the octagon idea, which is also, if you have the 8-pointed star or the compass, which is going back to one of our first Bongversations where we went to the end of Main Street in Disneyland, and we were presented with an octagon. We were presented with 8 directions to go in.
Yep.
Remember that?
So anyone listening, go back to those stories at truthmeets.com. There's 22 of them, and some great stuff. Great stuff.
Yeah, we did 3 on the Disneyland. That was
the
a really
Disneyland.
good trip.
The Disneyland ones were really top class, and my favourite one was when you said the delivery van that crashed was
the Smollett
deliveries, and
the Jesse Smollett.
Just as I brought up Shaq, because I'd always wondered about that name, and you just exposed it as the 44th demon. Smollett deliveries crashes into you as you're going into that Mr. Toad's wild ride. Coincidence? I don't think so. I don't think so.
Yeah. And then now, if you go back to this is kind of going back to more kind of what would be called Babylonian, which is nothing more. Anytime you let me get this just for everybody out there. Anytime you hear Egyptian, if you hear Roman, if you hear Babylonian, if you hear Phoenician, they're all talking about the same group of characters, which are mentioned in Genesis, in Revelation 2:9 and 3:9. For those that call themselves Jews but are not. That is the group. They also call themselves Ashkenazis. That group, that crew, is the one who's brought you all this stuff. They also have written the Rosicrucian stuff, and within that, the so-called octagon, it reflects the same thing, Rick. The so-called harmony, the between earthly and divine realms. That idea. So, and you've seen the same thing in Masonic art with the old man holding the triangle above the reflection of the water.
Yep.
You've seen that. It's all showing you the same exact. The
one thing that I'll bring it up again that I spotted, because just as you're the finest proponent of this, is exposing that computer language is part of the whole thing. And I noticed I found a book it was called Real Men Wear Aprons. You can imagine who that's about.
Mm-hmm.
And on the front cover, there was a very interesting old painting of a Masonic temple, and on the days or whatever they call it, where the person stands to their head of the I call it a coven now, but head of the
the coven.
It's a coven. To me, it's a coven.
Yeah.
There's a symbol that goes L with a small 0 and L. That's your LOL that you see all over computer language. It's there. A painting many years old of a Masonic temple. So your LOL that you thought that was meant laugh out loud, or whatever. There's a there with it. It's been put back into your lexicon of usage on your computer for your children. Yourself, I often do it, LOL. But it's actually an old term, and it's actually on their temple where the guy stands and waves his, whatever he's talking about.
Well, let's think about it. I mean, we can figure it out. So you have LOL, so you have 12, 15, 12, right? 12th letter, 15th letter, 12th letter. That's 39. Boom.
12.
Already figured out 9, 10, 11, 12, 3, G7. So you already figured out. Not only that, but LOL is the idea of hanging the G sign, which is on Masonic art is the G.
Yep.
So that's what that is.
Yep.
That's nothing more than that. So we already figured it out. That's pretty awesome, man. But also within the 3-9 is the 3-6-9 because the 9 just gets reflected. You see that
Yep.
already. So anytime you see a 9, you have to also notice that within the reflection because you're dealing ever since we left the single digits, we've been in a multi-dimensional thought. Just so you know that. So it's like if you mention the 3, you also have to see it just like you would in the mirror. Then you'd have to see it upside down. 6, 9, any other, you have to then look at it in all directions so you don't miss
It's
anything.
also the M. It's also an
Yeah,
M if you, or
yeah,
the golden arches of your McDonald's as well. You know, so
yeah. Uh huh. Uh huh.
it's everywhere.
Oh yeah. Well, also notice this. Check it out. If the L, you can see it looks like just a squared off 7,
Hmm.
right? So if you take 2 of those, you can make yourself a door or a window, and then you can put that little circle right in the center.
Yep. Yeah.
So
There you
then
go.
guess what? The 33, because L is 112 or L is 12, so that's your 3. So L separated by an L, you could reduce that to being your 33, your
Yeah.
signature 33, and your
Yep.
6 in the middle. 636. Do you remember that from a Rockford file when he went? Did I tell you this before the episode where it was called Dollars and Cents, something like that, where he was investigating a financial firm and he bought some hot dogs and 2 of them were $6.36 exactly. 636, and he said it. That was even part of the line, which is why that. So that's in a Masonic signature right there
Yep.
in Rockford Files, man.
Well,
Because
you've
he
got
gets the hot
just the fact
dogs.
that it's called rock.
Yeah,
Anything with the word
yeah,
rock in it is Masonic,
yeah.
guaranteed.
So he gets the hot dogs, Rick, and he goes 636, and he looks right at the camera. So I said, man, I knew that would be something, so I remembered it, and I just brought it back
Fantastic.
for right now. I knew I'd use
Fantastic.
it at some point. So that's good. So, but it's basically the same thing. So he was really just saying laugh out loud in code.
Yeah.
And if you were a Mason, you would have understood it, and you would have
Uh,
knee slapped and said, "Oh, those
Yeah.
freaking goy, those dumb cows! If they only knew the joke,
Oh
you know."
yeah, it's everywhere. And last night, Blow Me Down Rollo pointed out something that I hadn't even noticed. The
Right.
logo that I've said is one of the biggest logos over here, the Westpac Bank logo, which I've said is the 3 nails. It's the
Yeah.
phoenix. It's the trident and everything. But it's also the Masonic where you stand with the squared man, with your feet out in that angle.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the three G
100%.
seven as well, just
Yep.
always, because I
Yep.
tell you that and also if you hold the 7 in your mind, just if you look at it as a 7, and then if
Yep.
you reach out your like freaking lawnmower type man hand in your vision and grab that 7 and ring a bell with it, you can see how it's become a bell ringer.
Yep.
Do you see that? So
Mm,
that's what
mm.
that 7 is. That 7 is the bell ringer that rings your mind. Bing, 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 bing. That's what you're banging against your spiritual mind in order to actually fall in love with these different ideas, and thus you spend. Who do you spend time with but the one you love? So then you get
Interesting.
all the latest details. What are the latest updates? Let me find out what the latest update about some shit you have nothing to do with. You'll never do anything about. You know.
Oh, well, that's the people, including myself, that will look
Yeah.
on Facebook, out of
Yeah.
boredom and get sucked into these non-stop shorts that YouTube are putting on there. I guess they're YouTube, and they just
Well,
feed into you and just keep you interested in this boring fucking. Oh, it's unbelievable.
well, let's talk about this before we forget about it. Feng Shui. Feng Shui. Is that how you say it? Feng Shui.
Feng shui, yeah,
Is
feng
that how
shui.
you say it?
Yep.
They use a very similar shape for their so-called energy map. But if you remember, some of the oldest or older baptismal baths, especially for the Catholics, are going to be in the octagon shape. Right?
Interesting.
That's going away, and what's quite interesting is the one in the Vatican now. It looks like a briar patch. The one that I'll put a picture in the video, man. It looks
Yeah,
like they're stuffing some baby in a briar patch.
yeah, I've
It
seen
looks
that.
like
It's
shards of
incredible.
steel and shit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's the Pope's chair that is
yeah,
in front of it,
and
and it's basically like demons
yeah.
flying in the air. To me,
Oh,
that's my
oh, oh!
my
This is
view.
no. This is the baptismal. They're dunking little babies in.
Yeah, brutal.
This thing. It looks like a little. Just wait till you see it. But then, man, it's like a little pit of hell. But then they also have one for like the grown ass men, where it looks like a clam shell. And then I'm thinking, man, I'm kind of dumb, but I know what that clam shell's representing. Just so you know, I'm not that dumb. They're sticking your head in a clam shell. Are
Yeah,
you who's kidding who, guys? That's come on, man. They're sticking their head in a clamshell, and nobody gets it. Nobody gets the freaking
oh,
what
Dave,
the.
the first time I walked into a cat, and I kid you not, it wasn't till I was, say, maybe mid 30s. I went into a funeral. Sorry, yeah, it was a funeral for somebody in a Catholic church, and I've never entered the doors of a Catholic church before till mid 30s.
Uh-huh.
And I was looking at the walls of horror. There was like a distended skeletal fingers
Oh
clutching.
yeah.
So there was Christ, dying in agony, all emaciated, no muscle, just all just
Oh yeah.
twisted.
Corpse. Yeah, they're death worshippers.
And I said to my partner at this stage, I said to her, I said, "Is this normal? Like, have you been into one of these before?" Because I said, if I was a 5-year-old child, I would be traumatized just sitting in the place. It was
Yeah.
horrific, and this is what they have as their temple. Just
Yeah.
death, death,
And and
death, death.
and in fact, the stained glass windows are a form of a mandala. Now, you know, a mandala basically in sacred geometry would be more kind of like a wind catcher or a dream
Yeah,
catcher or
a dream catcher. Yeah,
a
same thing.
rug,
Yeah,
kind of. You'll have to look at the different. If you just have some white dude pretending to be a southern Mexican Indian, you're gonna. There might not be any design to it. But if you have a guy who's actually knows whatever force he's using, he's going to be putting geometric designs into it. And what that's supposed to do is when you look at these things, you're supposed to follow with your eyes, and then you can go into these different realms or spaces. Because I'm telling you right now, you can do that. That's not something that's made. You can do that. I'm not telling you to do it. I'm saying, but you can do it.
yeah.
Now, a Mandela, and now just remember, a Mandela, if you're gonna, for example, if you're gonna screw around with this stuff, and mess around and try to uh, corral, let's say a demon, let's say Sax, you need to not only do all of have your different uh, octagon and all this, but you need to then trap that spirit within a magical triangle, which you'd probably want to go ahead and make with salt, just so you know.
Mm.
All right. So then these people. So what happens is, and this is what actually happens, and this is what a lot of movies will show you, is people do invoke these spirits, but they invoke them into basically thin air, and with no containment. They're free to roam and wreak havoc. See
Isn't it interesting that they
Yeah.
call Rome Rome, and
Mm-hmm.
Rome means like roaming around, and
Oh yeah.
there's
Oh
there's
yeah,
obviously
man.
a, as you say, if it says it, if it sounds like it, it is it. You've
Oh
been taught that your head of your church is in Rome, and roaming mean roaming around with no idea where you're going. Often is the case.
oh yeah. It's like yeah. It's all well. Here's the thing too. If you're dealing with people who are talking about that, and they're still involved in telling you about the history of the so-called world, which involved these different armies going here and there, just you got to stop. You got to look at where you've lived and today. Look at how all of this has happened today within your lifetime. Witness to what you have seen. the same thing happened throughout time. The only difference and the only change has been technology and the speed that it's been changed. That's
Yeah.
it. That's it. But no, it wasn't. The day before you got born, everything was all hell, and the day I was born, they started faking it. No, it's always been convincing the mass of a so-called truth or a way, and then as long as most of the mass still is fallen in line, the hoax continues. The clown show
Mhm.
continues. The facade it remains. It's really it's like and
The
that's
song
why
remains the same.
the song
Is the
remains the same,
difference.
and that until
Yeah.
someone looks out from under the curtain, and then they realize that they are in fact in a circus, they can't get
That
out.
really that little part of the Wizard of Oz really did tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Not to be scared of that man behind the curtain.
Well, it also goes to the so-called Masonic uh, uh, art that you see the person lifting the corner and looking out and seeing what's out there.
Yeah.
Here's what's important about this, Rick, is that you can't even be what's beyond, while it can be described and it has been described, it passes through and out the ears of most because they have no ability to capture it. The
Yeah.
reason they have no ability to capture it is because they still live in this place. Something in this place, some idol, still has control of their mind because the truth cannot be present with you if you still house a demon or a lie in your temple. It just one cannot be with the other.
Yeah.
So for most people, there's something that keeps them in this system and stops them from actually seeking the truth. I mean, to the point to where show me the truth or take me out of here.
Yeah.
Being
I
being
think
that
sport,
ready.
as you just we broached on the subject just a
Yeah.
bit earlier, but sport is one of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Be it their golf obsession, be it
Mm-hmm.
their obsession with basketball or
Mm-hmm.
American football or Australian. I mean, Australians are one of the worst of the lot for being obsessed with sport, but it takes sharp minds and blunts them, and
Mm-hmm.
they'll never ever be shut. As far as I'm concerned, a lot of these people never ever wake up.
Mm.
Um, that's the way I see it. Sad to
Yeah,
say.
it blunts them. Speaking
Yep.
of blunts,
Speaking of blunts,
speaking of blunts, while I didn't have a blunt today, I did have a couple of bong rips, and I did have a couple of jaybirds, and then I did get some new stuff. I got some cosmic cookies, which is
nice.
wonderful. Oh yeah, really good
Do you
stuff.
just walk in and buy these from
Oh yeah,
at
you just
the?
walk here. Let me explain this situation to you. So you're the customer. You walk in. You walk up to the counter. They're gonna have the display out for you, and they're like, "So what are you in for?" You're like, "I'm in for a zip.
Yeah,
That's an ounce." And they're like,
ounce.
"Okay, you're looking for a zip. You're looking for an ounce." And it's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Hey, can you split that into two half ounces?" He's like, "Hey man, I got something really nice for you. I got this, that, and the other thing." And they'll pull out 3, 4 different bags for you, and you're like, "All right, yeah, I'll take that, and I'll take that." They'll pop it in a bag, tell you how much it is. Bing, bing, boom. You walk out the door. You have
Fantastic.
waxes, buds, pre rolls, really everything you need. Pipes, bongs, lighters, uh, zigzags. It's a
Fantastic.
one-stop shop, really.
Mm. Well, it's always going to happen that way eventually,
Yeah.
but is that's not all through every state in America, is it, or is it just
Uh,
uh,
no, it's not through
the
every state. I'm in Arizona now, so it's pretty easy peasy.
laid
I
back?
was in California before. I was in Florida where they don't have any. I just roll with whatever the local custom is what I roll with. You know.
Figuratively and literally.
Yeah, I just roll
Yeah.
with whatever the local custom is. You know, I just do my thing. So and in so yeah, it was a good pickup. I've enjoyed it, Uh, it was wonderful. So
Fantastic.
I got a couple new bags today. Yeah, so yeah, it's just that easy, Rick. In and out, boom, boom, you're in and out, and they'll talk to you about them. They have it so it's not like when I first started where I put it into like a snack bag, folded it real nice, and put it into another snack bag and made it look kind of presentable. They have to have them in in sacks with like the label on them, how much THC, blah blah blah, broken
Yeah.
down. I don't care about all that. Because I can feel it. I can feel
Or
it.
smell it, or
Well,
smell
oh
it.
yeah, once I smell it, yeah, it's. Well, here's the thing though. It's like if you're gonna pick up a, let's say you're gonna pick up weight. So you're gonna walk into a room and the dude's gonna say, "All right, I got some OG. All right, let me take a look at that." Boom. So he's gonna hand you a turkey bag, which is sealed. That turkey bag needs to be able to be. I need that mass, all kind of as one unit. So when I hold that, let's say pound of bud, I need to
Yeah.
hold it with. I'm going to twist it slightly, and I need to see that whole mass kind of move together. And then in my fingers, and I'm not crushing it. Never use pressure, but you need to be able to feel that there's firmness on those end of those nugs. That's test number one. If that passes, you open up the top. You give it a sniff. Mmm. You smell that. There should be no after smell, meaning there should be no chemical after smell. Because if they did, they didn't rinse it or they didn't do something right. It should just be a real Okay, boom. Test two, check. Final test is always you got to smoke some.
Yeah.
Boom. All right. And check this out. Here's what you do. You just don't smoke it and blow it out. What you're doing when you smoke it is you light it, you smoke it, you pull back and you look at the cherry. Look at the cherry on the Jaybird, and you look for it to be see if it's sparkling or not. You don't want a bunch of sparks in there. If there's a bunch of sparks in there, it means they over fertilized and that's still in there.
Interesting.
Yeah. So then
Interesting. That's interesting.
I look at it, and I see how clean it burns, and I'm like, all right. And then I'm like,
Hi.
okay, all right. And then I'm like, all right, this is what I give to you. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, did I tell you the one time that this one guy they thought they were going to rob me? So
No, I haven't heard that
so
story.
this guy calls me up. He's all, hey man, I hear you got some Blue Dream. I said, yeah, I got a couple pounds worth. I said, he said, I'm interested in a pound. I said, okay, that's $2,800. He's all right, sounds good. So I said, okay, I'll be over. So I went over, and I gave the guy just a gram piece, just a gram nug, and he's looking at it. He's over there pinching on it, carrying on. He keeps moving around to the corner, and he keeps pinching on it. I'm like, what are you doing, guy? I'm first thing. What are you doing? He's pinching on it, breaking up into little pieces. He's not even attempting to smoke it or anything. So I'm thinking this guy's acting nutty. Then his partner, I notice, is over on my right, and he's moving down the couch towards me. And then I didn't even wait. I got up and I said, listen, I said, you two watched a movie last night or something else, thinking that you're going to come over here and take a pound off of me and what, take over the business in the city? I said, you two knuckleheads. And I walked out the door and shut the door.
Fantastic.
Oh, yeah. They thought they were going to get me. I was like,
There's a lot of it.
goofballs.
That's a very normal thing though with well, in the industry, I would say, we call it the industry of ripping off someone else. There just seem to be some people just think they can do it, and
But
some can get away with it.
every
But
time, Rick, though, with a situation like that, I'm always thinking about like if there's cameras rolling, like
oh
in the
yeah,
corner. I said I'm gonna make this a pretty good scene, and I even pointed at him like left and right. I had them both in my sight. I'm like and then I backed to the door. I put my hand on the door, got out, and it was a pretty good scene and cut, one take,
yeah,
no mess ups. It was good. So then,
good on you.
so that was one of my little stories.
Fantastic, dude. Hey, I think we'll wind it up now because I
Okay,
think
yeah.
the first hour and a bit, what it was absolutely crucial stuff.
Oh yeah, this last
Crucial
bit
stuff because
we cut
we'll
it
end up just going
cutting
all
room
over the
floor.
place. No, good
Yeah.
stuff, man. And particularly I'm always fascinated when you talk about that Lesser Key of Solomon book because
Oh
It's
yeah.
extremely important for people to look at that book and look at the names being used. And tonight we broke, I said Shaq O'Neal,
Yeah.
but that guy is, to this day, even in Australia,
Uh-huh.
in your face,
Oh yeah.
particularly with gambling,
Oh
particularly
yeah.
with gambling.
Well, that
So
gambling thing's a big problem, man. That's going with
smartphones,
yeah.
gambling, kids, having, I have three of those that only one of them isn't really into sport, but he showed me all these apps that he can put on his phone, and you can sit there and lose all your money and anyone else's money that's stupid enough to give them, just
Well,
pressing buttons. And Shaquille O'Neal is one of the guys promoting it big time over here, the
oh
online gambling
yeah, they're into
scam.
everything, man. I tell you, it's something else, man.
Interesting. Yeah.
But we
Anyway,
broke
so
we broke down the powers of that certain characteristic,
bad stuff
which is
too, and
all.
really, really good stuff. It was
Yeah, man.
another one of those shows that I always say is better than the last one.
All right, well, let's send
Good,
the
well
pot
done,
out.
man.
All
Yeah,
right,
send the
cheers,
bot out, and we'll
everybody.
see you either next week. It could probably next week, I would say,
Yeah,
for episode
or the week.
40,
Yeah, 45,
45. Yeah, well,
45,
hey,
45.
hey, number
9, 9,
9.
number 9, number 9.
Fantastic. All right, and
All right,
thanks
cheers.
everyone for
Talk to
listening.
you.
We'll
Bye bye.
be blessed.